Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome back, everybody, to a post-UFC 307 edition of Cageside with John Morgan. I apologize. We did not record last week. That was completely on me. Some personal issues took me out of the equation, but we are back, and we are ready to dive into 307. Without further ado, let me bring in a man. I know he watched it just like I did. You can follow him on X, John Morgan _MMA. What up, John?
What's going on, man? Yeah, first off, let me just say, hope things got sorted out for you and everything's better on your side of the equation. We didn't get to do a full preview of UFC 307, but I feel like we had been talking about it for a while because we were so keyed up. And, man, I think a lot of the reasons that we were telling people this might be a little bit more fun than what you were thinking about, I think they really delivered. I ended up having a good time on Saturday night, man. I thought it was a great night of fights.
You know what? I did too. It was fun. I mean, we got a little bit of old and new. We got, it was really, really cool. I want to go back 2 weeks ago because in reality, we started previewing this early because I think of the excitement that nobody was talking about the excitement like we were. And I came out and said, listen, I think this is a pick'em. I don't think it's a 5-1. I think it's a pick'em. And I said, but hey, I could be called crazy once the fight ends up happening, see how it played out. And I'm going to be completely honest. This fight played out exactly how I thought it was going to play out, except for one thing. Peña ate Rountree shots like they didn't even affect him. I didn't see that coming. Whenever Rountree hits people fall down with that speed and power that Khalil Rountree Jr. has. It didn't even phase Peña at all. That's what shocked me in this. But the success that Rountree had didn't shock me.
Yeah, I think we were one of the only two people out there that were saying, hey, man, you might want to watch this. There's danger in the air, right? I mean, this is a test for Alex Pereira, and it proved to be that. Khalil is an absolutely dangerous striker, man. He brings power, and he brought aggression. He didn't seem to be overwhelmed by the moment. Maybe a little bit of nerves there, as you would expect in the biggest fight of your life. But overall, man, he brought it right from the start. The aggression was there. But you're 100% right. Like, he banked the first 2 rounds, no question about it, right? He's up 2-0. But he just banked the rounds. It wasn't like you really saw real damage from Alex Pereira, who just dealt with everything well. And then obviously, once it came time to turn things up a little bit, Alex Pereira does exactly what he does. But overall, man, I thought this was a really fun fight. I thought you were a little bit crazy for saying it was a pick'em, but I understand the sentiment of what you were saying because Khalil Rountree has every opportunity to win this fight. Ultimately, I think Alex kind of showed that there is levels to the game, so to speak, and he showed his veteran savvy in there. He proved his worth as a champion, but it was fun, man. It was a lot of fun. And the great thing about it is, look, people are going to be talking about Khalil Rountree. Who doesn't want to see what Khalil Rountree does next? Who doesn't want to tune in to his next fight? So even though it was a loss, even though it was disappointing, I don't know if you've seen some of the clips of how emotional he was when he left the cage, how beat up he was when he left the cage.
Oh my gosh, that
nasty
picture on Instagram.
Oh, unbelievable. But man, I feel like in a lot of ways, it was a victory for Khalil. He got the fight that he wanted. He proved himself to be entertaining and worthy of being in that moment, even though a lot of people said he shouldn't be there. And I think people are going to care a heck of a lot about the next fight that he has.
Khalil Rountree Jr. was one of those guys that you may have heard his name before. Ranked 8th. Now, me and you are not your normal fans. So we were well familiar with Khalil Rountree Jr., but by and large. Now, the reason I was so excited and the reason I called this a pick'em, and like I said, like I want to push back just a little bit. Actually, let me go to here. I want to push back just a little bit on what you said about there is levels to this. I think Khalil Rountree is as good of a fighter as Alex Pereira. It showed to me. I don't think that Alex outclassed Khalil Rountree. What I saw were the God-given physical attributes that Peña has that just eventually made Khalil wilt. And he did not quit. His body could not handle it anymore.
No, and let me be clear with that. And you're right. I don't want that to seem as some kind of insult, the levels comment, because sometimes that's used as derogatory, like, hey, there's levels to this game. Just, Alex Pereira is that just tiny little sliver above where he is the elite of the elite and he can deal with these tests. But first of all, you talk about the God-given. What about the size difference when they got in there? I mean, I knew there was going to be
a size. How did he make 185?
That was the exact thought I had. Like, my God, look at this man. Tower. I'm like, this looks like some weird creative character video game situation where like these dudes aren't even like in the same division. So that was wild. But yeah, it just, man, Khalil, I mean, just an absolute warrior, and yeah, battered, and boy, those body shots right at the end. I mean, obviously he was cut up, he was sliced up. I think the word on the broadcast was there's something flapping. I was watching it with my wife and kid, and we were seeing the same thing. Like, is his eyelid like flapping right? I mean, it was just. Yeah. Oh, my gosh, it was brutal. And then those nasty body shots right at the end where, again, Alex showing that veteran savvy, right? I mean, to be that patient and to be picking those shots, in that type of chaotic moment, I mean, just unbelievable finishing ability. So, yeah, great performance all the way around. And you're right to push back on that, and I want to make it clear. I'm just saying Alex just proved, man, why he's one of the most, top pound for pound fighters in the sport right now, one of the biggest superstars in the game.
2 years into his UFC career. 2 years.
It's crazy, right?
That is
crazy.
Absolute insanity. Let's start round number 1 because I made a bold prediction. I'm gonna go. Listen. This was for your eyes only.
I was gonna ask if you. I wasn't gonna bring up the text if you didn't want to, but I'm glad you're going down this path.
Okay, I made a bold prediction about an hour prior to fight time. I texted my esteemed colleague, my good friend, John Morgan, and I said, Rountree by second round KO. All right. And I just felt it. Like, listen, I want to take us all the way back. Okay. I called. There's documented proof. I predicted that Julianna Peña would beat Amanda Nunes in the first fight. I called it. I called that Sean Strickland was going to dethrone Israel Adesanya because styles make fights.
You did,
right? Indeed. I did those, and I just said something was telling me that Khalil Rountree Jr. was going to pull off the improbable 5-1 dog upset. I texted you Rountree second round KO, and you just gave me like the eyes.
That was my reaction too. It was literally just an actual representation of me at that moment. I was like, "Whoa, okay, he's going out on a limb. He's calling it."
I felt it. I felt it all week. I felt it in the pre-fight. I felt it on the walk. I felt it watching the countdown show because it looked to me that he was back in Brazil training. Now that might have been just for the show, but he wasn't in Glover's camp there. They weren't doing that. He was over in Brazil where he started, more teaching. And so I was just like, this is ripe. He is ripe to fall in this fight. He is ripe to fall. And then round 1 comes out and Rountree is looking spectacular. But then about 3 minutes into round 1, I said, my prediction is not going to happen because even though, Alex Pereira, this is why I thought he gets hit. He has the ability to get hit. And Khalil Rountree was hitting him with some big shots. And he was hitting him with some fast shots. It didn't faze him at all.
Yeah. You saw the aggression. You saw Khalil going for broke. You saw him pushing it. But as you said, I mean, I think Alex was kind of rolling with the shots a little bit and absorb and just it's hard. Again, you talk about the size difference. I mean, Khalil had to like jump into everything and strike from range. It's not like he could really. So I just think everything was like a little bit off balance or not, not quite delivering the power that it needed or the accuracy that it needed because he was having to strike from range so that he didn't have to deal with Alex's long power. So yeah, I kind of got that same feeling where you were like, Khalil banks 2 rounds and he's up 2 rounds to none, but you don't feel like Pereira was ever any real danger in that time. You know what I'm saying? And so you thought, the tide on this could absolutely turn. Now, that's not to say that Khalil couldn't keep it up and couldn't keep banking rounds, but man, he just wasn't able to do that, and Alex was able to turn things up late.
And here's the the weird thing to me, and I saw in round number 1, Peña doing what got him in trouble in Izzy 2 or 4, however you want to look at it, is first he was doing a masterful job of keeping his range. And all you strikers and fighters out there, I think you really need to go look at Peña defensively at what he was doing in this fight, which I hadn't really seen him do it before. He may have, but the tell wasn't speaking to me like it was in this fight. Is whenever Rountree was striking back with him, he would just extend his arm with a fist like this and keep that range. So these shots, even maybe because they were hitting him, that they were bouncing off something first before hitting him, or not getting to him at all. Now, every now and again, Khalil Rountree was cracking him hard. He cracked him with a head kick, cracked him with a body kick, cracked him with shots. But I noticed that he was doing that. I said, that is great defensive posture that he's taken, even though he's getting hit. But then round 2 happens. And Alex throws that high kick. He moves, spins around. Wham! Rountree drops him. And I said, did I Nostradamus this? Did I Nostradamus this? And then Alex Pereira pops up and it acted like he didn't even think.
It was funny because during that exact moment, I said, "Oh my God, this man called it. He was feeling it." I'm like, he was spot on. So for a split second, man, I did think you had absolutely nailed it. I thought you would put it to not only call the massive upset, but to call the round as well. I was like, oh man, this dude is there's gonna be some patting on the back going on Monday morning. Some self-patting, some self-appreciation. But that was the moment, right? I mean, that was the moment where he thought this could be it for Khalil, and obviously Alex dealt with it well. But that's a great observation from Poatan on what he's doing. Because like you said, if you can just misdirect those shots just a little bit, if they can glance a little bit, right? So they're not landing clean, because we've seen the highlight reel. We've seen what Khalil is capable of. But if it doesn't land clean, it doesn't land direct. And that's what he struggled to do. He just couldn't ever land it true clean the whole time.
Yeah, now there were a couple exchanges where I said, well, I'm watching it from, I had no dog in the fight, right? So I'm not pulling for anybody. I'm pulling for an awesome fight. But, Peña he does this, and this is what got him in trouble. And so maybe another big hitter could pose some problems for Peña, but he would crowd himself every now and again. He crowds himself and he wings from the hips. But he only did it on a few times, so he really didn't put himself in any real danger of taking that counter shot that he, didn't see, and that was at full power. So it really was a masterful. But now going into round 3, that tide turned big time. And what Peña was doing was he would absorb a shot and he would close the distance immediately. And as anybody who has trained, fought, whatever will tell you, when you are moving backwards, it is just so tiresome. When you are having to fend off the aggression, even if somebody's not throwing it, it disrupts your breathing, it disrupts your rhythm, and your gas tank just goes boom, 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 boom. And that's what I noticed. He was doing it all fight, but he picked up the pace doing it in round number 3.
Yeah, that's what the tide, as you said, it really started turning at that moment. I think, it turns out, you could hear it in between rounds. Alex was like coughing in the corner. He had been battling some illness. And, I think there was maybe not just as sharp as he needed to be early on. Potentially he was just biding his time. I mean, he knows, hey, I've been in the deep rounds. I know this is going to be a big adrenaline jump for Khalil. He's never been in the spotlight. He's never been in a title fight like this. Maybe I can count on him to fade a little bit. But I think it was really a matter of Alex kind of needing to up the aggression level a little bit. And he did that in round 3 and really started to turn the tide. And look, I'll be honest with you, this was a hard matchup for me from a fan perspective, because there was a part of me inside that was really pulling for Khalil Rountree. I was cheering for him. I mean, I got to call the guy's fights as an amateur. I mean, I've watched this man's journey to the top.
Local Vegas guy.
That's right. He fought in Tough Enough here in Las Vegas, which I do commentary for as well. And, so I was excited for the guy, man. You just love to see people fulfill their dreams. And I know he fulfilled it to a degree by just being there, but I wanted to see him get that Cinderella moment and get over the finish line. But you could tell in round 3, like, damn, as good as he did in those opening 10 minutes and as good as you're like, oh my gosh, maybe he is going to deliver, it was starting to slip away from him pretty bad. And then, of course, Alex turned it up even higher in the 4th round. And he just showed why he's so dangerous and why he's so scary. And so, an incredible champion for sure. This was a tough one for me because I was pulling for Cliff. But how do you root against Pereira right now, right? I mean, the greatest walk-in in the game. He's becoming a social media legend. He's a superstar. The dude steps up and fights. And as you said, man, the things that he's done in 2 years, it's crazy, man. In 2 years, when in the beginning people are like, you can't fast track this guy to a title shot. He doesn't deserve that.
Yeah, that did not age well.
That didn't age well, right? And we were sitting there going, no, you get this man up there on his title. You give him every opportunity as quickly as you can. He deserves it. And boy, he is proven, right? I mean, a story that was linked to Israel Adesanya to begin with. I mean, that did help his path to the title, of course. There's no question. And I thought the UFC did a masterful job of utilizing that. You have this relationship between these two. You have this rivalry between the two. Build on it. But, man, Alex has moved so far past that at this point, right? I mean, that's not to diminish Israel Adesanya at all. But now that's just a chapter in the story of Alex Pereira, right? It's not the entire saga of Alex and what he's doing and what he's accomplishing, man. He showed what makes him so good, even if maybe it wasn't his best night. And I always say, look, that's the mark of a true champion is maybe you don't have your best stuff that night. Maybe you were a little flat. Maybe the illness was waning on you a little bit. Maybe the injury that you were dealing with was, causing difficulty, but you find a way to get it done against a game competitor anyway, man. It was brilliant. And, man, just, you talked about, utilization of range and mastering that. I mean, just watch the finishing sequence, the way that, how masterfully he just slightly slips out of the way of Khalil's shots, making sure that he's just in his range, but out of his opponent's range. And then, like you said, turning up the aggression and make sure you're hitting back and answering right away. It was beautiful to watch.
So my good friend Grant, you've met him, his wife, Grant and his wife were over. And when those finishing body shots, that was preceded by a vicious uppercut, right? And then he goes to the body. My friend Melissa, she goes, "What side's the liver on?" I go, "It doesn't matter. He hit both sides, so he got it in one of them." Because he just ripped these 2 body shots. I mean, and you're talking about a guy, 2-division world champion, not only in the UFC, but also Glory Kickboxing, the highest level kickboxing in the world. 2 divisions in 2 different major organizations, which is absolutely insanity.
That is crazy.
But the way that he will pick his shots, there was one sequence where he literally grabbed Rountree's hand, moved it down to then throw his punch.
It's ridiculous the way he puts it.
Did you see that?
It's so funny. Yeah, it's the subtle things that he does, man. The little hand traps that he sets and the things that he does, the way he picks his shots, man. It's incredible. And it's funny, as you were talking about her asking about where the liver is, I'm like, I think when Alex hits you in the body, like it's just every internal organ together. Just everything squishes all at once, man.
Yeah. Khalil Rountree, would he go up in the rankings with that loss?
I think so. I think he does. I mean, we'll see. We'll find out. But I mean, that's competitive. I'm anxious to see where he ends up this week because I really do feel like even for the voters on the UFC rankings panel, I feel like he announced himself to the world. He took 2 rounds off the champ. A lot of people haven't been taking rounds off Alex Pereira, so I think it's very conceivable he actually moves up a little bit.
Yeah. So here's my fear. That could be a fight that changes somebody. With the amount of damage. That's my fear with Khalil Rountree. I hope that he takes an extended layoff. Because the talent's there, the drive's there, the backstory is there. Everything is there for this guy to be a beloved babyface. And so let's take some time off. Now, let's move to Pereira because this is where things get really interesting. And just let you know, Alex Pereira said that Rountree was his toughest fight that he's had. Right, that's saying something.
I wanted to pull up my vote to see. I actually had going into the week. I didn't move Khalil at all in my rankings. I've already submitted mine for this week, but that's because I already had him at 6. I had him up higher already, so I had him up higher than his ranking. So we'll see if the other panelists respond, but we'll see.
All right, come on, you damn panelists, get on board here. So here's where things get real interesting. Now, if we're looking at the rankings, you got the rankings pulled up, the light heavyweight rankings?
I got them right here.
All right, let's go down the list.
All right.
If
well,
you could read them.
Yep. Hasn't been updated yet. Obviously, that'll come out later tonight. But as it stands right now, Alex Pereira, of course, reigning champion. Number 1 contender, Yuri Prohaska. Number 2, Magomed Ankalaev. Number 3, Jamal Hill. Number 4, Jan Blachowicz. Number 5, Alexander Rakic. Number 6, Volkan Ozdemir. 7, Nikita Krylov. And that's where we got to 8, Khalil Rountree Jr.
All right. So obviously the Yuri saga, it's over. That ain't happening. Okay. Right. So let's take the number 1 contender and put him to the side. That would be a great Rountree fight once he gets back.
Ooh, I like what you're thinking there.
Okay, but that's at least 8 months from now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So now is Ankalaev the deserving guy? 110%.
Yeah.
But that's not the question that we are asking right now. What we are asking is, what fight do you want to see? Jan, Jamal, or Ankalaev? And I don't think anybody, unless you just want to be, I want to stick it to the UFC type guy. Like, I'm going to be an agitator on the UFC, even though they give us everything that you love, you just want to like talk shit about them. I don't think anybody out there says, I want to see Ankalaev fight, Alex Pereira.
Yep.
I just don't think anybody sees it. If people wanted that would have been in the fight that would have been made. I don't think, as big as Alex Pereira is, do you think you could, okay, now we're looking at it realistically, this would be maybe the end of the year card that Alex Pereira could headline again. Could you put that at the top of the card of that particular card with Ankalaev?
It's a tough ask, right? I mean, and
that's what I'm saying. It's not that it's not deserving. It's name value, recognition, 100%. Exciting fights. That's all.
It's a business, right? I mean, this is different than other sports where you set up the season schedule and you fight your way through it, and then the playoff seeding you're trying to make matchups that drive interest and that drive pay-per-view buys. And, should point out that Magomed Ankalaev does have to face Alexander Rakic later this month over in Abu Dhabi, but he was probably already the deserving number 1 contender. So if he wins again, he's definitely the deserving number 1 contender. And let's not forget, a lot of those guys, Alex is already beaten. He already has wins over him. So, but to your point, it's a tough ask. I don't think a lot of people will be calling for that fight. At that point, you're essentially asking Alex to handle all the promotional responsibility on his own.
A guy who doesn't speak English either. Okay, so let's put that in a box, right? And then we have Jamal Hill and Jan Blachowicz. I feel that Jamal Hill is deserving of that rematch. I do think that there was a little gamesmanship that happened to Jamal Hill. Mm-hmm. But I could see the machine picking Jan. We have former champion, long reigning champion. I think that could be a guy who hits like a truck, that poses enough of a risk to take him down, but a guy who probably isn't going to be diving on takedowns either. Like, that could be a really fun, interesting fight. And I think name value wise, you could put that at the top of a card, right? But it really, to me, it comes down to, is the UFC going to take Jamal Hill? In my opinion, Jamal Hill took such a long layoff, was rushed to the top, deservingly so. He was deservingly so. Rushed to the top, beat, won the title over Glover, which was a weird interim style, if we remember all the stuff that happened with that fight for Jamal. Only to then rupture his Achilles, to be out almost a damn year, come back, have this. He's got one fight in now almost 2 years, a year and a half. I would almost like to see Jamal Hill get a real statement win and build that fight a little more, I don't think it does Jamal Hill any service. I know he wants it, but I don't think it does him. It's a disservice, in my opinion, just to put him right back in there.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're right. I mean, there was a touch of controversy in that finish, right? I mean, was it a clean restart? Was it a clean break? We've seen the highlight. We've talked about it. Protect yourself at all times, obviously, but there was a little bit of gamesmanship there. So he's got the case. But I think you are right. And I love the way you mentioned it. Jon obviously has been making the case for that rematch as well. Split decision. He went the distance. So, I mean, he certainly got a case for it as well. I think Alex did say, hey, I got to take a little bit of time off. I know I had this amazing stretch. I've been rattling these title defenses together. I need a little bit of time off. I think what also is going to stand out to me is how does the 2025 schedule line up for the UFC? Because here's what I'm thinking. UFC usually goes to London in March, right? So if they want to go to England, then you probably put the European on there, Jan Blachowicz, right? Now, when are they going to Abu Dhabi for the first time next year? Because if they go to Abu Dhabi next year and they need a headliner there, and Ankalaev happens to be victorious in Abu Dhabi later this month, then you probably go with the Ankalaev title shot in Abu Dhabi. Or if you need something in good old Las Vegas, maybe that's when you turn to Jamal Hill and say, let's do that. So I think geography, as much as it may sound like a weird thing, I think geography may play into a little bit of the decision-making process as well, because that's the interesting thing. There's a lot of options there, and you can make the case for all of them as to why they're the most deserving of it. So I think it's going to boil down to, hey, does Ankalaev prove victorious? Because if Ankalaev loses, now he's out of the discussion. That'll happen at UFC 308 later this month. Well, of course, we'll talk about that over the next couple of weeks. If he's victorious there, he keeps his name in the hat. If not, his name drops out. And then you've got those other contenders. But you asked me what fight I want to see most, and I want to see him fight Jon Jones. I want to see Alex Pereira fight Jon Jones. I mean,
that wasn't in the topic, but dude, I just had a visceral reaction to that. You just said it. I had a visceral reaction.
Can you imagine, right? I mean, that fight would be amazing. They've toyed it. But listen, it's tough, right? Because we know we've got the Stipe Miocic fight with Jon Jones in November. We know we've got Tom Aspinall waiting on the sidelines. And, man, I'm just thinking about it. As much as I want to see Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira, you can't do Tom Aspinall dirty like that. Now, again, we're not going to write off
Stipe. Bilal Muhammad, if somebody can be done dirty. Yes, you can. Give it to me. Give it to me.
Hey, sorry, Tom. That's Eric, man. I'm not saying you should get done dirty. I want to make it clear.
Tom Aspinall, in my opinion, is the future of this sport. Okay?
He is.
Oh, man. Gosh. Do you imagine, like, the amount of money that would come into this company if you had Pereira and Jon Jones? We talked about this 2 months ago and saying, is Alex Pereira stealing Aspinall's shine right now, going up to heavyweight? And we both said yes. And to get it back, he needs to be spectacular. And guess what? He was spectacular against Curtis Blades. But with that being said, who would the fans want to see?
Alex and Jon. I think that's the biggest fight you can make in the company right now. Take any two athletes, male or female, any division on the roster, and tell me what sells the most. And I think that's it right there. I think that's the biggest fight you can make in the UFC right now.
But to Pereira's point, he said he likes to stay at, he's going to want to stay at 205.
Absolutely. And that's good. And I love it. Look, what made Jon Jones Jon Jones? Because this is kind of that era, right, where like people win a title and they're like, now I want to move up and win 2 titles. And that's great. But I think it means so much more when you're like, hey, you see that top 10 list right there? Yeah, I beat all of them, 1 through 10. Every single one. Every one of those contenders right now, I beat them all. So if he can get that type of longevity, because as we said, it started out as this story with Israel Adesanya. Now he's writing his own path. Then he's moved past that. That's just a chapter. If you can keep going down through it, if you can go back, let's say Ankalaev is victorious. Oh, you're the guy that I haven't fought yet. Oh, you're the guy that you said I was ducking, that I didn't, or that I was trying to avoid. Let me beat you. Okay, Jamal, you feel like there's controversy? Run it back. Run it. Oh, I just beat you a second time. Now where's the controversy? Oh, Jan Blachowicz, split decision. You thought, let's do it again. I beat you again. Now what? You know what I mean? Like when you can beat everybody like that and nobody can even question you, that's how Jon Jones became Jon Jones. So maybe Alex Pereira wants to continue that path as well. And I have all the respect in the world for it, because to me, true greatness is not marked by what you are able to do in a short period of time. True greatness to me is marked in longevity and just downing everybody that's got a target on your back coming after you.
Or 2 division champion in, Glory. Then in 2 years, become a 2 division champion in the UFC. I mean,
longevity means the first 3 division champion in UFC history would be pretty tasty as well. That would be pretty tasty.
We look at, people are saying they're the most accomplished combat sports athlete, right? We look at Triple C, even though he was self-proclaimed that. I happen to agree with him. You're an Olympic gold medalist, 2 division world champion. Yep. Okay. You have an interview coming up with Grind City Media this week, Kayla Harrison. She can lay claim to that as well.
2 gold medals.
2 gold medals and a PFL world title. And, I don't think it's unrealistic to say that at some point she's going to claim the UFC world title if, the paths lead there. With that being said, now Peña has to be in the argument now. Glory is not the regional circuit kickboxing. Glory was K level 1 style. It was almost essentially the new K1, right?
100%.
He was a 2 division world champion. Comes into the premier mixed martial arts organization in the world, and in 2 years becomes a 2 division world champion. Is he the most accomplished combat sports athlete?
You have to have him in the discussion. You know what I mean? You have to have him in the discussion.
I haven't heard anybody else say this yet, but it popped into my head.
You have to have him in the discussion. I mean, there's something to be said for obviously that Olympic medal is pretty incredible, right? But I mean, what he's done, as you said, in 2 different sports is incredible. And man, I'm telling you, if for whatever reason, he said, to be clear, he said light heavyweight is my future for now. But if for some reason, whether it's Jon Jones or otherwise, and he's able to move up to heavyweight and become the first ever UFC fighter to hold title in 3 different divisions, I mean, that is saying something. And this is not some like fluke one-off where it's just like, well, we made this fight happen or whatever. Like, no disrespect to the great George St. Pierre. He's a legend, but he kind of came back and cherry-picked that one fight at 185 so that he could win the title. But, I mean, to do this in 3 different divisions would be absolutely unbelievable. So he's got to be in the discussion.
Okay. Listen to this. It just dawned on me. Jon Jones retires after Stipe. Interim title. Or for the undisputed. The interim champion, Tom Aspinall, needs to get an undisputed world title against who?
Alex Pereira. Let's go.
Boom! Let's go. Let's go, John Morgan.
Hey, I just told you what the biggest fight you could make in the company is right now, but that right there is just underneath it. That's 1B. That's you got 1A and 1B. That'd be a hell of a fight.
Way heavyweight or UFC and heavyweight division fight fans would not be utterly disappointed that we don't get the Jon Jones Tom Aspinall matchup. That's the only way.
100%.
It would have 100%. To happen. It would have to happen if Jon Jones retires.
Yeah, because you need to restart the division, right? I mean, that's the reason promoters don't like it, when champions retire, because whoever steps up next is kind of like, yeah, but you didn't really beat the champion. You know what I mean? The champion just retired. So are you really valid as the champion? But man, if you already got an interim title holder and then he beats the scariest man on the planet to solidify his heavyweight title, or conversely, it's Alex Pereira moves up, doesn't just win the title against somebody, some yahoo that happened to be there, but against the reigning interim champion who a lot of people believe could and would beat Jon Jones. I mean, yeah, absolutely unbelievable. And we've said it before, right? Because Tom Aspinall, you look at what, if Jon Jones and Stipe do walk away, then you start looking at, well, who do you want on the other side for the unified title fight? Like Cyril Gane? I mean, I don't know, Alexander Volkov? Yeah.
No.
Pavlovich?
No.
Already beat him. Blades? Already beat him.
No.
Jailton Almeida? Too
Keep
soon.
saying everybody, and I'm going to say no.
Exactly.
Name off everybody. I'm going to say no, and I'm going to say put Alex Pereira in that spot. So listen, he's fighting Jon Jones or Pereira next.
Done.
Tom Aspinall. Those are his only 2 opponents, and a lot rides on Jon Jones. And I believe the UFC is going to push him hard immediately following that fight. Are you or aren't you? We can't sit on the sidelines anymore. You have to make a decision.
As soon as we get done, I'll call McMahon and let him know, hey, bro, don't worry about the matchmaker meeting. We got it done for you. You take the week. You don't even have to fly in from Houston this week. Just chill, stay back home, enjoy your family. We got the job done for you. We'll have legal draw up the contracts if you could just send out the emails.
All you have to do is invite fighter A. If A, then B. It's done.
And look, what's funny is it does, because Alex said, I need a little bit of time off. Well, guess what? Jon and Stipe is happening in a month. So in the next, 6 weeks or so, we will have an understanding of if Ankalaev's name is still in the mix, and we will have an understanding of what's happening with Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic, who wins, and are they sticking around or not? And that time you get to start making the plans, and that heavyweight belt should be awfully tasty.
Because Jon Jones, he loves to play a lot of head games, but I just don't believe he's going to have people hanging in limbo. If he retires, he wants to make it a big moment, right? So he's going to want to do it in MSG, put those gloves down, get everybody saying you're the greatest of all time, which hands down, he's the greatest of all time. Don't give me anybody else. Jon Jones is the greatest of all time. So he's going to want that moment. And if he does not do that, we know that matchup with Tom Aspinall is on. But if he does, now the stars have a line. Dude, put us on payroll. Put us on payroll.
I love it. A lot of big scenarios, a lot of big fights to shake out at the end of this year. And we're already looking at big fights.
Scenarios aren't but the scenarios aren't like wild.
No, they're not. These are not crazy ones where you're like 15 things have to happen in order for this to come together. Like, this actually makes a lot of sense. It really does.
Yeah. All right. Now, I need to take a deep breath, man. That got me fired up, dude. That got me fired up, Johnny. So, hey, listen, controversy, not some controversy. I don't know, depending on where you stand. But Julianna Peña reclaims her women's bantamweight title in a 5-round entertaining-ish fight against Raquel Pennington. Before we get into anything of the fight, who'd you have winning?
I had Raquel Pennington winning this thing live, giving her rounds 1, 4, and 5, Julianna Peña 2 and 3. And I can leave it there if you like, but I will say that first round was damn close. I had Julianna Peña winning rounds 1, 2, and 3. I went back and watched it after the fact, and I can easily see, I think sometimes this is interesting, right? I've always wondered about this with judges. Like, it's important that you know the fighters that you're watching, I think, you to know something about them. But sometimes I think that can almost be negative. Now, it's impossible for these high-level judges not to know these athletes. But I think all of us, like, when you're going in, you're like, well, Julianna Peña has to get this to the ground to win the fight. So if it doesn't go to the ground and you don't, and it stays on the feet the whole time, are you automatically going, well, that's a round for Raquel Pennington right there? And listen, I went back and watched it, and Raquel Pennington, I did think there were 2 real nice moments in that opening round, because that's all we're really talking about is round 1. 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all clear-cut, easy. Round 1, she did have a couple of early moves. She had a left hand that landed that kind of staggered Julianna Peña a little bit. She had an uppercut that kind of popped back the head of Julianna Peña a little bit, kind of later in the round. She did throw a couple of leg kicks.
Kicks.
Yeah, the leg kicks were kind of snapping as well. They looked like they were effective leg kicks. So those were all things. But on rewatch, I think going back, I may not have given Peña as much credit as I needed to for the jabs that she was landing. She was landing the jabs.
Let's go by the criteria. All right, let's go by the criteria. And this is so we every fighter or every fan, I think, looks at this from what have you heard about how you judge a fight? Striking, grappling, octagon control. Well, they said it on every fight for the past 20 years. They don't say it anymore, but they have. Right. That's how everybody thinks of it, right? But it's effective striking, then effective grappling, damage reigns supreme, right? With those. And then if all, basically, I'm paraphrasing all this, I could give you exact verbiage, but then if all those things are equal, now let's go to aggression.
Right.
Okay. So take the octagon control and throw it to the side.
Right.
It's not applicable in judging that first round. A lot of people say, well, she pressured her. She should have won by pressuring her. No, she shouldn't have won the round because she pressured her. Now we go to the effective striking and the effective grappling. No grappling. Boom, throw it out.
None.
Okay. So now we go to the effective striking. Okay. I think a lot of fans are heavily influenced by Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier, man, you got to get better in positions of announcing. You just got to. I'm sorry. Sorry, DC. I love you. You're great. You're articulate. You bring the passion, but sometimes you say some wild things. But if we're looking at the effective striking and damage, there was no damage to be had really anywhere. In fact, if we want, like Raquel Pennington was the first one to bleed. If we're going to weigh damage, she took more damage. I believe the significant strikes off the top of my head, I think it was 23-21. Julianna Peña had more significant strikes in the round.
And I'll say, they go back and they update those stats afterwards. I've got the updated stats in front of me, and the updated stats show a final in that opening round of 25-17 for Peña.
Okay, so every time Raquel Pennington wanted to come in, Julianna Peña was sticking her with a stiff jab. It was a stiff jab. And then every fourth or fifth time, she would come over the top and hit her. And she was winning the exchanges when they were both throwing. Now, where DC and I believe Rogan were influencing the people at home is the 2 times she landed a low kick, they were like, oh my God, it's a low kick. And they gave it so much weight, right? They gave it so much weight. But it's in reality, it doesn't show damage. And in reality, she didn't do it enough to ever accrue the damage.
Right.
So I almost take those and throw them out. I equal that to a right hand at that point. So then now let's go to the effective striking. And I think Julianna Peña effectively outstruck her based on the criteria of the judging. Now, it was razor thin, but that's why we had to get into detail talking about this first round, because the first round decided the fight.
100%. Yeah. 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all clear. Everybody in the world scored them the same. It comes down to round 1. And yeah, exactly what we said. Watching live, I scored it for Raquel Pennington. So immediately after the fight, I thought, man, that's a bad decision. But I knew it came down to round 1. So I was like, let me go back and watch that again. Let me watch it with no commentary. Let me watch it fresh on Sunday when I'm not watching every other fight too. I'm just isolating that one round. And after I walked away from watching that 5 minutes a second time, I didn't necessarily say, oh yeah, my bad, that's clearly Julianna Peña. But what I did say is, oh yeah, you can absolutely make a case for Julianna Peña here. Like it's kind of not controversial. You know what I mean? Like it's just razor thin. Where I think if you turn in either card in round 1, and I know that may sound terrible to say that like there should be a clear cut 100% who is right, who is wrong. But I feel like it was one of those rounds that if you turn in either scorecard, you got a case. And I don't think you're out of line for doing it. So I don't think it would have been controversial had it gone, either way. And I'm more
in my house, it was 3-2, right? It was 3-2. 3 people thought Pennington won. 2 people thought Julianna won. And
how many of them were licensed officials, though?
Well, it was split. Me and Grant. No, because his wife. His wife, Melissa, is licensed as well. She's ABC certified. So then it was 2-1 at that point.
2-1. Okay. So even licensed officials who are trained and not just, fans or journalists who just watched a lot of fights, but people that have actually completed the course were split too. Just goes to show you, I think it's less controversial than maybe it felt in the moment. And here's what's the weird thing about it, right? Was initially I did think it was controversial. I did think, oh, that's a bad decision. But even if you thought it was a bad decision, you still had to think, but don't that work out great for the UFC? Because come on, man, Kayla Harrison versus Julianna Peña. I mean, we talked about that coming in. Like nothing against Raquel Pennington, man. Her story and what she's gone through and what she's done to get where she is incredible. And you can't not be a Raquel Pennington fan. She's just a great human being. But Julianna Peña, I mean, hell, I don't know if she was already trying to sell the fight, but she was already trolling on the microphone, man. And getting this
man, you want to talk troll level 10.
I'm telling you. And look, hey, how about, the UFC sees what they have here. I mean, how many times have they ever had a split screen where the other fighter is in the back that, is like, Never. I don't ever remember that happening before. So to have that set up and then for Kayla Harrison to do this, as he's running away from me while Julianna Peña is mentioning Amanda Nunes. I mean, hey, we got that build up. Whenever that fight happens, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think collectively everybody can safely say that Raquel Pennington, if this was a schoolyard fight, won.
Yeah, great way to put it.
But she lost the decision, and there wasn't controversy. It was razor thin. It was perspectives. It wasn't a robbery, but she won the schoolyard fight. I think that's how we could say it.
Yeah, I agreed. And that happens sometimes, right? Where, it, like you said, if you just looked at two people and said who won, you would know in the schoolyard or on the street, but you don't do that. We got rounds and you got to score it round by round. You got to turn in those cards each round. So, yeah, when I went back and rewatched, and I encourage anybody that maybe feels like it was a terrible decision to just go back. You don't have to watch the whole fight again, but just go back and watch round one because that's where it really comes down to. And I will say on second watch, I thought this maybe wasn't as bad a decision as I originally thought.
And turn off the commentary.
Turn on. And look, honestly, on rewatches, if you're doing that, really, if you want to watch something and know that your opinion is not being, because it has to be. Like I always say, the judges in a packed arena where the crowd is cheering every shot that the hometown guy lands, even if it's blocked. Like there's just all these little subconscious things that have to impact you, and the commentary will impact you sometimes. So yeah, if you're going to go do that and make sure you're 100% unbiased, turn the commentary off, watch it without sound. I wish there was an option where you could just get the natural sound in there so you could hear the impact of the blows and not hear the commentary, but the UFC is not there yet. Maybe someday.
All right, we got to get going because you have a interview lined up with who?
Kayla Harrison, the aforementioned Kayla
I know
Harrison.
We're going to get into this, but
we're
really
going to get the thoughts.
Talking about judging controversy there, judging controversy, and Aldo Batista controversy there. Do you agree?
I had it for Mario Batista, to be honest with you. I'm a big Jose Aldo fan, man. I think Aldo's a legend. I had it for Batista there. I think a tough one to score as well. How did you have it?
I had Aldo winning.
That's fair.
I had Aldo winning. I had Aldo winning the third round.
That's what it comes down to.
Like the diving in my opinion, not trying to get the takedown. That in effect to me then puts you at a 50-50 position. And then whoever outstruck early in the round, and I think Aldo, when that striking was happened, was a little more effective, but it wasn't a robbery. It just was kind of.
I wish Aldo would work to get off the fence, but his takedown defense is so good. Like get off the fence, like it's like you're showing disdain. I likened it to like, how some guys will accept guard, they'll fall on their back and they're like, well, I'm comfortable here. He's not doing anything to me. Like I'm good. No, get on a hip, get up, get out. Same thing. It's like, bro, I know your takedown defense is good. I know you don't feel threatened here, but get out of the position. I think that would have eliminated any controversy whatsoever, but does not take away from Jose Aldo. That man is a legend.
I don't like to see that he's becoming a gatekeeper though.
I know.
Yeah. All right. Well, you have another interview to be doing. So we're going to wrap it up today with our post UFC 307. And I will be filling out my HR paperwork with the UFC. Here should be in my email because we are going to be getting on payroll because damn, we just made some matches.
We got it done.
All righty. Well, with that being said, for John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.